Stonehenge in Wiltshire after violent clashes between police and a convoy of hippies. The convoy crashed through roadblocks to try to get into an illegal pop festival.
The convoy of 150 trucks, coaches and caravans moved off shortly after midday to drive to Stonehenge in defiance of the law. They were 400, mostly men. On their 10-mile journey, they were observed from the air. Then the first roadblock. The holidaying public, now hopelessly caught up, turned round. The convoy came to a standstill at another block, then turned across the fields. They cut down fencing in preparation for the violent confrontation that followed, in which many arrests had been made. Windscreens were smashed and unlit petrol bombs were hurled. Police reinforcements have now been called out, but Stonehenge has remained closed to the public.
We haven't done anything, have we?
Just trying to live our lives, that's all.
We don't interfere with anyone else.
And this world's supposed to be a common treasury for everybody to share, not people to
free
button
land.
up. You know what I mean? No wonder people are starting to get sick. These people are pushing our people too close. And, like, it's going to start to explode one of these days if they don't watch it.
This whole thing is just a total farce.
Cities are going crazy. Everybody's going crazy. It's all because of this. They're trying to impose a police state.
When that boat is stopped, make sure the driver is well identified.
I didn't do anything, mate. They smashed me windows. They hit me on the head with truncheons. They hit me when I was on the floor.
They just started attacking the bus. And they were hitting the window, the driver's window, with an iron spike about 4 foot long or so, half an inch wide. I thought it was a fencing stake to start with, but it wasn't. It was too big for that. More like a crowbar. And eventually it did go through, and the windscreen, which had been caving in, finally broke, and I went back and sort of went like that because of the glass flying in, and the spike came through the window, and it was definitely quite frightening.
Out!
All right!
Stop! Stop!
Babies in here, very small babies! Wait!
What we, the ITN camera crew and myself as a reporter have seen in the last 30 minutes here on this field has been some of the most brutal police treatment of people that I've witnessed in my entire career as a journalist. There must be an inquiry. I don't know what the results will be of it, but at this stage, the number of people who've been hit by policemen, who've been clubbed whilst holding babies in their arms and in coaches around this field is still to be counted. What the end result will be, we don't know, but there must surely be an inquiry after what's happened here today.
When I got back to ITN during the following week, and I went to the library to look at all of the rushes, most of what I thought we'd shot was no longer there. And from what I've seen of what ITN has provided since then, it disappeared. And particularly some of the nastier shots that were taken of the battle in the Beanfield of the woman being dragged out by her hair, I know was filmed.
A convoy of almost 200 hippie vehicles on its way to Stonehenge was brought to a halt at Chalderton, 7 miles away. It first tried to break through a police roadblock. Police forced vehicles into a field and then moved in to start making arrests. Truncheons were drawn, many of the vehicles were badly damaged. Normal holiday traffic was thrown into chaos. Today, the scene of the most violent clashes was relatively quiet as special drug squad detectives thoroughly searched vehicles which had been in the convoy. Meanwhile, some of the hippies were allowed to return to pick up their personal belongings.
There's a carnage, man. It didn't
didn't have to happen. We were just going along. If they hadn't given us any hassle, we weren't wanting any hassle. They forced us into this field. We were surrounded by 3,000 police. We didn't have any choice.
Well, as a resident of the last sort of five years of Darrington, I mean, we get plagued every year sort of this time with the, you know, the hippies that come for the festival. But, you know, as it's come to a head now, I mean, something's had to be done over it, and this is the only course of action that's, you know, that's been available, I think.
Special courts are sitting in Salisbury to start hearing charges against more than 500 people arrested yesterday near Stonehenge in Wiltshire. They were on their way to an illegal pop festival. Police had thrown a security cordon round the site. Most of the arrests were made when hippies in what they called a peace convoy tried to break through police roadblocks. After a series of clashes, 24 people, 9 of them police, were treated for injuries.
This morning, little was moving on the field that holds the peace convoy vehicles. With over 500 arrested and held by police across 4 counties, virtually no one is left to drive the vehicles. Those people remaining on site were made to leave while their vehicles were searched. Then council trucks were called in to tow away any remaining lorries and buses. Many still showed signs of enthusiastic police efforts to get them to move away from the area yesterday. At a special court at Salisbury Police Station, dozens of people from the peace convoy have already appeared before magistrates, largely charged with public order offences, possession of offensive weapons and assault. In Amesbury, 2 miles from Stonehenge, police moved away any of the hippies who had arrived during the night.
Well, today, Wiltshire Police defended their actions. The Chief Constable, Mr. Donald Smith, said they had been enforcing an order preventing the illegal festival, which had been issued by the High Court.
The 600 people on their way to Stonehenge, camping in Savernake Forest near Marlborough on the morning of June the 1st, have many different beliefs and backgrounds. United only by the desire to live on the road and shared ideals about living in peace and freedom, they have been christened the Peace Convoy.
I was shouting at the police to stop, you know, because we had babies in there. And they didn't. They just carried on and on and on, smashing all the windows down the side.
I heard all this thumping and then a smash. And suddenly, like, all these policemen appeared out the sides of the van in front and just, like, started smashing the windows. And, like, then dragged me and everyone else in, dragged them out and took them off and arrested us.
There's hundreds of them, literally hundreds of them. All with the black boiler suits and the visors and the black helmets and, you know, their batons and shields and everything. And, you know, it was terrifying.
They really enjoy it. You know, you could just see on the faces that they enjoyed it.
The central point was that the Assistant Chief Constable of Wiltshire, Lionel Grundy, sent men on foot into a field to deal with 60 or 70 vehicles, large, fast-moving vehicles, and he gave those men no means of stopping them. With the result that they started to chuck things. They threw stones, truncheons, they took off their helmets and threw them, they unbuckled their fire extinguishers and threw them, and those missiles went through glass windows, and the missiles and the shattered glass flew all over everybody.
We've actually found the stone they used. This is the stone they used to smash the windscreen. You can see it's a bit of flint, it's got all these in it. That could easily have shattered someone's skull and killed them. And they're calling people here violent and murderers. And that could have killed them. It's ridiculous.
There came a point in that field when the police violence reached such a pitch that me and several other reporters in that field put down our notebooks and started to shout at the police, "Stop doing this, you can't do this." And that's an extremely dangerous thing to do in that sort of situation. And at that point, my photographer was arrested, and I was threatened by a couple of officers who told me to push off. But it had got to that point where you just couldn't be a reporter pretending that it wasn't going on. You had to try and intervene to stop them beating up these people.
He said, "We've got a baby on this bus," and I took her to the front and I showed her out the window. Every single policeman who was round the bus saw my baby, and they just smashed everything, the windows, and the baby was in there. I rocked her back with it, covered her in my shirt. The shirt got covered in glass and everything. She could, you know, if it wasn't for her shirt, she would have been ripped to shreds. And they just didn't care. They just kept on smashing.
They then pulled the passengers out and got them on the floor, There was broken glass everywhere. There were screaming women. There were pregnant screaming women. There were babies in arms covered in broken glass. And I just hadn't seen that sort of thing before, not in my own back garden, as it were. One sees it on the television, turns off the television and thinks not too much about it. But actually stand 6 foot away from a woman with a bleeding head, crying for her baby, was just something that cut me rather deeply.
Last year at Cholderton, we dealt with the group of people who call themselves a peace convoy. Peace is completely a misnomer. The convoy is a group of people who move around the country 365 days of the year, who have no regard whatever for law and order. They have no regard whatever for the normal sanctions which we need in society to live together. They use the festivals for their own purposes of drug trafficking, for setting up protection rackets within the site, and they are very violent people to deal with in any situation.
And particularly where the travellers are concerned, there's 2 factors that work. One is that individually, reporters are scared of the convoy. They're afraid they're going to get mashed up or raped if they go close to them. So you've got ignorance. And the second thing is that on the face of it, the convoy looked like a good story. You see, what makes them a good story is that they fit a kind of cliche from Hollywood. They're crazed hippies. And if you put the ignorance and the cliche together, you stick with the cliche, you see, because you don't go close enough to them to discover they're not crazed hippies. But it makes good copy. And on the particular occasion of the battle in the Beanfield, so-called, most of the press succumbed to police knocking around. The police told them to stay down the bottom of the hill, out of the field, and the reporters agreed, which was crazy. The police had no legal right to keep the reporters out of the field, but they allowed themselves to be herded like sheep away from the field so that they didn't see what went on. So then when the police came down the hill afterwards and gave them a lot of complete guff that fitted into the cliche image of the crazed hippies, they bought it. And it's actually, in a way, you look at them and they're just a joke, but it becomes a pretty dangerous joke when prospective jurors and voters and people who should be angry about what happened get fed this kind of nonsense.
We took an important stand on the very first or the second day of the case, when the press started calling this the hippie trial, and that Lord Gifford was representing 24 hippies. And I just put my foot down and said this word is a racist word. It is a word which is derogatory. It is not accurate. And I don't think it should be used in this case.